But we know that the media is a very important part of any democracy, and it's what separates us from those totalitarian governments like you were mentioning before, that we've got to respect both sides. What do you think, and I know we're talking a little bit backstage about this, what do you think is the current state of the freedom of press right now?
Wow. This is the season of miracles, and I'm supposed to be nice the week heading into Christmas. I'll say this at the outset, just like believe it or not, there are good and bad members of Congress. Kidding. They're good and bad field goal kickers. They're good and bad dentists. They're good and bad almost everything. There are folks in the media that, regardless of whether or not I agree with their personal orthodoxy, are professional and they do a really good job. And then there are those that, to me, have lost all pretense of objectivity. Just in the interest of full disclosure, and I'm to the point in life where I can say what I want to say, and I'm not fearful of the consequences of it. I've been really disappointed in the media since I've been in Congress. I think there is a blurring of the line between the opinion page and the news page. And I can take you to the headlines on almost any website on the internet right now, and you will say, well, that's opinion. That's subjective, not objective. There was an article written over the weekend about one of my friends, Mick Mulvaney, who's the new OMB nominee under President-elect Trump. Just terrible. And so, yeah, they have the right. Again, I would tell them with that comes a responsibility. They have the right to print it. You have the right to decide whether or not you think it's right or whether or not you agree with it. And quite frankly, you have the right whether or not to read it. So increasingly, I think we're voting with our telephone dials and whether or not we re-up our subscriptions or whether or not we go to certain websites. The media has a unique place in our culture. They are given rights that the rest of us don't have. Think about New York Times versus Sullivan. That's a Supreme Court given protection as they're going about doing their jobs. But with that comes a corresponding responsibility. Let me just summarize my frustration with the media this way. Nobody has breakfast plans, do they? There's a difference between being balanced and being accurate. If I were writing a balanced article, I could say, person X believes Senator Tim Scott is the most handsome person in the world. Person Y believes Senator Tim Scott is the least most handsome person in the world. That's a balanced article. Both are wrong, but it's a balanced article. He's closer to being the most than the least. But you see what I'm saying? That's balance. That to them, they've done their job. They have quoted this person who's wrong and this person who's equally wrong, therefore it's balanced. I think the goal ought to be accurate, not to be balanced. And there is a movement within the media now that it is more important to be first than to be right. So, as a member of the least popular profession on the face of the earth, I think it would do them well to analyze why they would be increasingly giving us a run for our money as to who the least popular entity on earth is. The polling I see indicates people trust and believe the media less than ever before. Is that your fault or is that their fault? And if it's their fault, maybe they ought to, again, I started by saying with every freedom is a corresponding responsibility. Maybe they ought to ask themselves,